Hi again, everybody. Bill Phillips here on a Friday, and it is a football Friday. It is a weekend. It is the Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully, everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving day yesterday as we get ready for the Christmas season now. And it's we head, feet first into a weekend of high school and college football, some playoff games, some teams remaining in the state of West Virginia for high school football that we cover in the Ohio Valley at WTOV9. And we are going to have you covered with Sports Friday tonight. Also, college football this weekend. There's a little bit of a game known as the Ohio State-Michigan game. It's a rivalry game. It is in the states of Ohio and Michigan. It is life and death, you would think. So it is one of the great rivalries, if not the best rivalry in all of sports. It's hard to argue against it. Do you think it's the greatest rivalry in sports? We'll talk about that. The Steelers and Bengals play this weekend. West Virginia's at Texas Tech to finish up the season. My Miami Hurricanes going up against my birthplace of Syracuse University, where my dad went to school. And so we're going to be matching up in a game at the end of this weekend. Now, I still love Syracuse, but I went to Miami, so I'll be pulling for the Hurricanes. Hurricanes win. They go to the ACC championship game. So Syracuse could really spoil the work. So, and then I'd have to hear about that from my dad for quite some time, I would imagine. So a lot of big games going on this weekend that have some big impacts. Ohio State, Michigan. If Michigan were to upset Ohio State, that would give Ohio State 2 losses. Would that keep them in the playoffs? Would that knock them out of the playoffs? There's been some wild stuff happening in the last few weeks. So something to talk about, something always to talk about. Valley Converting, our sponsor, they do a great job for us. We greatly thank them all the time. And why not? They do a great job. If you have converting projects in terms of recycling, converting paper products into a new form of paper, a new form of cardboard, they have that for you ready to do. They can help you out. Give them a call. They're in the Gem City of Toronto, Ohio. It is Valley Converting. They do a great job, and we're going to hear from them now.
Every piece of paper has a story. What if that story didn't end when you were done with it?
At Valley Converting, we turn your old paper products into recycled paperboard, continuing the story.
Locally owned and operated in Toronto, Ohio, bringing your paper to Valley Converting isn't just about recycling.
It's about supporting a cleaner, greener future for all of us.
We are here 5 days a week to help you make some green by going green.
And remember,
recycle for your future.
Mike Biasi and his crew up in Toronto, Ohio, and he is a big Ohio State fan. He's a graduate of Ohio State, if I remember correctly. So he is going to be all in on the Buckeyes this weekend and what they do. So let's start with high school football. And today it's Friday, and we have 3 teams remaining in the West Virginia state playoffs that we normally cover here at WTOV9. And we have Wheeling Central is still in play. Cameron is still in play. The Dragons and the Maroon Knights are still going at it as they head into round 2. And, of course, the round's a little bit low right now because there was a week off due to some injunctions and some teams that filed motions in the court or their schools had. But they're back on track. And Wheeling Park at home today at Wheeling Island Stadium. And that's a game that we'll be focused on all 3 on Sports Friday. So there's plenty going on with Sports Friday. All 3 of the teams will be covered of all the highlights for you of those 3 games. And the game with Wheeling Park, they are at home against Huntington. And we have coverage for you streaming on our streaming services at 3:45. A little pregame show. Game's scheduled to start at 4. A little pregame show at 3:45. And you can catch that game on the WTOV9 YouTube channel, the WTOV9 website, WTOV9.com, the WTOV9 app, and the WTOV9 Facebook page. So a number of ways to catch the Patriots of Wheeling Park when they take on Huntington today on Wheeling Island Stadium at Wheeling Island Stadium on Wheeling Island. And it should be an outstanding game. Wheeling Park had a fantastic season, one that saw a lot of growth as they went through the season, really. Just turned into an outstanding offense that can beat you with the pass and beat you with the run. So there's going to be plenty of highlights. And if you want to watch the game, you can catch it all on the streaming services. Again, Huntington and Wheeling Park, 3:45 today on WTOV9's Facebook page and YouTube channel, as well as the app and WTOV9.com. And we'll have highlights of not only Wheeling Park, but Wheeling Central and Cameron on Sports Friday tonight as well. So a lot going on with high school football. And then we pick things up with, there's a pro game today as well, and it's a rivalry game. Last year, the Raiders went into Kansas City and came up a winner on Christmas Day, and it didn't really do much to Kansas City. They still went on and won the Super Bowl, but it's one of those games. It's a rivalry game. You never know what's going to happen in those games. So Kansas City today taking on the Raiders, and that, if you're looking for it, is on Prime. And here you go. The Raiders 2-9, Raiders 2-9, Kansas City 10-1, and it's at Kansas City. The Chiefs favored by 13.5 points. I don't know. If I was going to make a wager, I might let them. They have no offense. Their Minshew's hurt. They don't have a quarterback. You're in Kansas City. That should be a Kansas City winning by more than 2 touchdowns. But that game is today. And that's the start of the NFL weekend that we'll talk about a little bit, because the Steelers and Bengals get together. That's a big game. But right now, let's talk a little college football action, and the game that everybody's waiting for, as it is every year in Ohio and Michigan, and of course across the country, because they're normally 2 of the top-ranked teams in the country. Michigan, not this year, but Ohio State very much in the mix for the playoffs. Very much in the mix for a Big Ten championship, currently 10-1. And that game is set for noon on Fox 9. So Ohio State, Michigan, noon on Fox 9. But before that, if you're looking for the big noon kickoff, well, you're going to have to start early. It's a 3-hour special event. It's at 9 o'clock in the morning on Fox 9. And then you have the game kicking off after that. So a lot going on in this one. Over under 44.5 points. It's money lines plus 900 for Michigan, minus 1,800 for Ohio State. 91% of the market is wagering on the Buckeyes, and I can't really think of any reason why Ohio State should not win this game. The last game out for Michigan, they beat up on Northwestern 50-6. They lost to Indiana. They lost to Oregon. Michigan State, they won. They lost to Illinois. That's their last 5 games, while Ohio State, in their last 5, beat Indiana convincingly 38-15, beat Northwestern 31-7, beat Purdue 45-0, beat Penn State on the road 20-13, and they beat Nebraska. And again, Nebraska had them on the ropes a little bit going into the fourth quarter, but Ohio State came back and got the job done. So that game coming up tomorrow, and is it the best rivalry in all of sports? Everybody's got their opinion. Some people think it might be the Red Sox and the Yankees in Major League Baseball, the Packers and Bears. But year in, year out, these 2 teams seem to be near the top of the ratings, and that's where, or in the rankings, and that's where Ohio State is. Michigan, not so much this year at 6-5. But do not rest, if you're an Ohio State fan, rest on the fact that, Ohio State's just going to, roll over Michigan because Michigan's 6-5 this year. It's a rivalry game. You see what happens. You never know what's going to happen in a rivalry game. Run a Michigan fan, and when you have nothing to lose, it's the most dangerous game of the year, and that is true, Ron. That is true. Michigan comes in here, nothing to lose. They have everything to gain, while Ohio State has everything to lose, and they still have a lot to gain as well if they can win the game, because they could really lock up a lot of things for the postseason. But Michigan, they have an opportunity to get the job done. So that's a look at some of the big games high school-wise for us, and in the NCAA. It doesn't get much bigger than Ohio State and Michigan. Huge game here as well on Saturday afternoon. Notre Dame, number 5 currently in the rankings. I can't remember the playoff ranking, but they are in the top 12. If they win at USC this weekend, Notre Dame locks up a playoff spot. They'll be in the top 12, even though they don't have a conference championship game. And that loss to NIU, Northern Illinois, at the start of their home schedule will mean little. And maybe a little bit, they could maybe be ranked a little bit higher in the playoff rankings. But if they can beat 6-5 USC on the road, Is it going to be easy? I don't think so. But Notre Dame's playing well. USC comes up with a win last week against one of their arch rivals in UCLA. So let's see, where's the money at on this one? Notre Dame getting 71% of the action, USC 29%. So a lot of people are going to put the money down on the Trojans of USC. Notre Dame last 5 games, win over Army, win over Virginia, win over Florida State. That is, Army's 9-0, but they play a similar offense to Navy, and Navy couldn't handle Notre Dame, and Notre Dame figured out the option real quick. So they give up Notre Dame scores 49 against Army, gives up 14, beat Navy 51, gave up 14. Virginia and Florida State, not two of the strongest teams, and they beat Georgia Tech 31-13. So that's the last 5 for Notre Dame. Last 5 for USC. They beat Nebraska and beat UCLA in their last 2 games on the road at UCLA at the Rose Bowl. They'll play this game at the Coliseum on Saturday. Lost to Washington on the road, beat Rutgers at home, and lost to Maryland on the road at Maryland. So USC, what are you going to get from them? I don't know. They're 6-5. They're bowl eligible. Obviously, they want to get a 7th win. And again, this is a rivalry game. It's national TV. And again, if USC can win, they really just dash any chance Notre Dame has to go to the playoffs. So that is another huge game this weekend. And it is one of those one. That's a 3:30 start, and I believe that's on CBS. Miami and Syracuse. This is a game that I'm going to be interested in this weekend. I'm interested in all the games. Who am I kidding? I love college football. Love sports in general. Miami 10-1, headed to Syracuse to take on the Orange. They're 8-3. Now a lot of people say Syracuse is terrible. They're not a good team. The only game that they really were blown out in was the Pitt game, and that was self-inflicted for the most part. I mean, Pitt played a good game. Defensively, they played a good game. All the money, though, 81% on Miami. When they, Miami has a lot on the line. Last 4, they've won 4. They lost to Georgia Tech in their next to last game. And then Syracuse, they beat UConn last week, gave up 24 in that one, beat Cal. Miami struggled against Cal, and Syracuse went and handled the business pretty well. They lost to Boston College. And they beat Virginia Tech in overtime, and they lost to Pitt 41-13. And basically, the Boston College loss was 37-31. Pitt lost 41-13, and they turned it over, I think, 6 times, 5 interceptions on the day. So just one of those games where they've been in all their games, and their losses, other than the Pitt loss, they have been in their games. Where else did they lose? I forget where else they lost. Stanford at home. They lost 26-24. That was back in week 3. So much changed team. So a lot going on. Some of the other notable games, West Virginia on the road, looking for a 7th win. They'll play Texas Tech. Tennessee will look not to stumble against Vanderbilt. They're now up to 8. This is a huge game in the ACC. So you have SMU, Miami. Clemson has to win against South Carolina. And South Carolina, 8-3, maybe the hottest team in the country right now. South Carolina ranked 15th, Clemson ranked number 12. That's basically a playoff game for both teams. South Carolina, you never know. With the way there've been upsets lately, they might be able to get in. Maryland 4-7 taking on Penn State. SMU travels to Cal. You have the Iron Bowl, Auburn and Alabama. Everybody thought Auburn would be beaten up by Texas A&M last week. Didn't happen. They won in overtime. Alabama went on the road and just laid a stinker. They're 8-3. I mean, talk about laying an egg in a big moment. They needed a win there, and they needed to beat Auburn. And they're probably in the playoffs, and then they're going to have to go to the SEC championship game. But now they're going to be out. They're not going to make it. They're 8-3. It's just I don't see how that happens. Arizona State has to beat their rival in Arizona, 9-2 against 4-7. So a lot going on. Oregon looking to remain perfect. They'll take on Washington. Texas and Texas A&M, big rivalry game. 10-1 against 8-3. Let's see. Anybody else later on? No, that's basically it for the Indiana. Can't stub their toe against Purdue. Purdue 1-10. Indiana 10-1. And Purdue's pretty much they haven't played well against anybody this year. Who did they beat? Who did they beat? And whoever they beat should be embarrassed. They are not good. They are not good. Let's see who they beat. They beat Indiana State. First game of the season. So I haven't won since the first game of the season. Last game, they were in it against Michigan State, 24-21. So a rivalry game against Indiana. You never know. Maybe they pull something off. If they do, Indiana would be knocked out of the playoffs. Maybe that's how Alabama somehow gets in on a vote. But Indiana can't take Purdue lightly. If they can win, they may lock up a playoff fight. You never know. So a lot going on there with college football. We mentioned high school football. Let's see. Ron, need to make Monday a national holiday to recover from this weekend. It's a big weekend. Thanksgiving, Black Friday, everybody out shopping today. And then, of course, you have all of the football games that everyone's going to be watching. So a lot going on. Now in the National Football League, you have, as I mentioned, the Chiefs and the Raiders today, Kansas City and Las Vegas in Kansas City. How about the New York Giants? They're just terrible. I watched about 5 minutes of that game with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are terrible. But the Giants make the Cowboys look like world beaters. Dolphins are terrible in the cold. They lose to the Packers. Lions survive the Bears. Rivalry game. But here it is. Steelers 8-3. Steelers 8-3. Cincinnati 4-7. So the Steelers 8-3 in first place. Baltimore 8-4. Cincinnati 4-7. Basically, if the Steelers can go on the road and win in Cincinnati, they can pretty much end Cincinnati's hopes of reaching the postseason. But we just saw the Steelers not get it done in Cleveland. In Cleveland now 3-8, and then they play Cleveland, I believe, if I have the schedule correct. They will play Cincinnati this week, and then they will play Cleveland next week. So you'll play the Browns twice in a 3-week period. And, of course, Cincinnati needs a win. So let's see, how do the Steelers finish? It's all basically divisional games. And then you got Kansas City thrown in there. So the Steelers 8-3, they play on the road at Cincinnati. Then they're home to the Browns next Sunday. Then a road trip to Philadelphia. Eagles are going to be a handful. Then it's the Ravens on the road. Then they get the Chiefs on Christmas Day, and then Cincinnati to finish the season. Oof. They got to handle their business. They got to find a way to get it done. And then, the Ravens, what's their final stretch look like as they, battle with the Steelers? So the Ravens playing the Eagles this week at home. So the Steelers will be pulling for the Eagles to get a road win. Then the Ravens play the Giants. That's a win. Steelers and Ravens on a Saturday. Then the Ravens and Texans. Ravens on the road for that one. And then the Ravens finish up with the Browns at home. Doesn't seem as tough as the Steelers schedule, but it's just the way things shake out. So Steelers have to find a way. And everybody talked about that. Everybody talked about the Steelers needing to find a way to win almost all of their games. They did what they needed to do in the first half of the season, but they stubbed their toe last week against the Browns. Browns come up with a win. Steelers didn't get in the end zone. They've got to score more touchdowns. If they don't score more touchdowns, it's not going to matter, because in the playoffs, Chris Boswell can be great, but you're not going to win if you don't score enough. And right now, the Steelers still have to figure out a way to score touchdowns. So there it is. A lot going on, a lot of games, a lot of teams that are going to find out exactly how good they are, exactly where they measure up. And for college teams, this is the last opportunity to make an impression. If you have a chance to go to the playoffs with a win, and it is a chance to hopefully avoid an upset, or if you're a team that has maybe had a subpar season, you're playing your arch rival like Ron's Michigan team. They're going to be ready to try and get that upset to salvage their season, so to speak. Then Ron checking in again, seeing how the Steelers rebound from last week may be key to the entire season. Absolutely. You don't want to say must wins when it's not technically a must win game, but man, need to get a victory. Need to get a victory against Cincinnati on the road. And that's not an automatic, because Cincinnati's been putting up points. Anthony Vincent checking in. Go Bucks. Absolutely. Go Buckeyes. But taking on Michigan. And it is a huge game for Ohio State. simply, it doesn't matter about anything else. That's the thing about this rivalry with Ohio State and Michigan. Playoffs, doesn't matter. Big Ten champions, doesn't matter. We got to beat Michigan. That's the attitude for Ohio State. That should be the attitude for Michigan, and I'm sure it is. Urban Meyer, we had a story on the other day, and he talked about people saying, oh, this is a big game. This is a big rivalry. This is a huge game. And he said it's more important than that. It's life and death. This is, they everything goes into this. It can't just be a big game. It's got to be everything. And so that's the former head coach of Ohio State. Never lost to Michigan, 7-0 against Michigan. So here we go. No, Bill, it is a must win for Ryan Day. I will not argue that. I will not argue that. And whether you can look at his record, and he has a sensational record. There's no way to argue that. He's got a sensational record, sensational recruiter, and has done a great job getting the talent there, but he hasn't been able to beat Michigan. Has to beat Michigan this week. If he doesn't beat Michigan this week, that chair, that seat, whatever, that bench that he sits on at Ohio State could be really hot. But one of the people I think's in his corner, we had a story today as we previewed the game, the president of the university, Ted Carter, this will be his first time watching the Ohio State Buckeyes play Michigan at home as a president of the university. So he has said, I've watched Coach Day. He does a great job. They're prepared. So we'll find out. But they need to win. They need to win against Michigan this weekend. Is that people will be, I don't know. They'll be beside themselves is an understated way to put it. But that would be, it would be interesting to see the storylines that would come out of that game. Coach Cooper, he had his struggles with, it seems to be all or nothing right now with the coaches in this series. Harbaugh turned it around, but you had Coach Cooper. He was hired to beat Michigan. Couldn't get it done. Was struggled to do that. And then Urban Meyer shows up, boom, 7 in a row. He reels off a bunch of wins. Ryan Day is having a tough time winning those games. So it's gonna be a great weekend of college football. It's gonna be sensational. It may be one of those days where literally you sit down in front of the television or two televisions or however many screens you can get, and you put the TV on and you have a bunch of different games going on. I mean, just Saturday afternoon, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, USC, Miami is going for a spot in the ACC championship game. You have those games. Clemson, South Carolina. There's just so many great games this weekend, but the biggest of them all is Ohio State and Michigan, and the Buckeyes have to win it. They just absolutely have to win it. He may not get out of the shoe if it's not. OH, and you know the response, IO. So Ohio State getting ready for Michigan, the team up north. We will see how it goes. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it up for today. Again, want to remind you this afternoon at 3:45, if you're looking for some high school football to watch, Wheeling Park taking on Huntington's second round of the West Virginia playoffs. We have it for you on all of the streaming devices for WTOV9. It's on the WTOV9 Facebook page, WTOV9 YouTube channel. It is on the WTOV9 app. It is also on WTOV9.com. It will start at 3:45 with a pregame show. Jack Hillgrove will be on the call for that one, and it will be at Wheeling Island Stadium. It should be a great game, and we've got plenty of high school football, and the winner goes to the third round of the playoffs. So Wheeling Park looking to get to the third round of the postseason. Also, Wheeling Central and Cameron, the Dragons and the Maroon Knights, they will play today, and we will have their highlights on Sports Friday, complete highlights for those. So a lot going on tonight for high school football and then college football and the pros this weekend. It's a great football weekend. It really, really is. And Ron gets the final word. Put in for your Monday vacation day now. Ron, going to let you in on a little secret. Put in for that vacation day a few weeks ago. So you will not see me on Monday. If we're going to talk about these games, we'll have to do it on Tuesday because I am off on Monday. So I'll be watching a lot of football and then probably recovering from it all on Monday. So hopefully everybody enjoys the football weekend. Hopefully everybody's having a great Thanksgiving Day weekend. Of course, it's Black Friday today, the shopping day of shopping days. So it'll be fun. And Anthony, happy belated Thanksgiving to you as well. And happy belated Thanksgiving to everybody as well. Didn't get to see you all yesterday. So again, hopefully everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving Day. I got to tell you what, my daughter and I, we cooked the turkey together usually. And she was in charge yesterday. And I got to say, we cooked up some turkey. It was really, really good. So I have to thank Isabella for that. Again, hopefully everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Anthony, thanks for that belated Thanksgiving wish, and wishing everybody a fantastic football weekend. Until next time, everybody, I'm Bill Phillips. Remember the two rules. Have fun and always try your best. Have a great weekend, everybody.